We have senior DOJ officials didn't know the database allowed the FBI to bury the existence of Russiagate documents. So this is, we talked about this story for people who were here last night a little bit, that there's the Sentinel program that allows, or was it last night or was it Saturday night with Joe? I don't remember if it was Saturday night with Joe or if it was last night. We talked about the Sentinel program that allowed FBI to hide documents. Nobody would know about it. This is more, about that the senior DOJ officials had no clue that they had this system. Now in question is the entirety of Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the Russian collusion hoaxers. This is by Margot Cleveland, Professor Margot Cleveland. She's a very good follow on X, if anyone you can recommend. She's always got good stuff about cases coming down, and she's a good resource for stuff like this to keep an eye on it, know what's going on. So here we go. So, people familiar with the investigation into the Russia collusion hoax told the Federalist that senior officials did not know the FBI case management database, Sentinel, allowed agents to conceal the existence of evidence. Nor did anyone from Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office mention that documents related to the investigation into the Trump campaign had been rendered invisible by use of the prohibited access coding in Sentinel. Even though they knew the Department of Justice was investigating the origins and handling of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So basically, we have a government that got too big and too unwieldy that people inside the government didn't know what the other people were doing. So one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing. You had the FBI doing things that the Department of Justice didn't know they were doing. And I want you to really think about that, because the FBI works for the Department of Justice. I mean, they didn't used to be that way. They used to be years and years ago when the FBI first started, and it was run by this guy, J. Edgar Hoover. A lot of people said, and it's probably true, that he was the most powerful man in Washington, D.C., because he did not answer to anybody except for the president, and mostly he didn't even answer to the president because he usually had dirt on a whole bunch of people that he could use and blackmail and stuff. And there's stories that he wore dresses and everything, but we won't get into that. We'll just say that the FBI was way out of control. And then after Hoover died, they pulled some of the power back and they stuck it under the DOJ, and it was supposed to answer to the DOJ and the Attorney General, but I don't really know if they do, and this is kind of proof that they really don't. On Monday, a former political appointee at the DOJ expressed surprise that no one from the Special Counsel Mueller's team mentioned the prohibited access functionality of Sentinel to senior officials. Said, surprise face, oh my God, I'm shocked. The news follows last week's release by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa of a recently declassified FBI report that revealed that Special Counsel Mueller's office used a prohibited access restriction during the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. Didn't these senators know about it? I mean, how could the FBI have programs and things, doing things, and they're supposed to report to Congress, the Intelligence Committee, or these different things, Select Committee on Intelligence, something. How did they not know? Did they know? Is this just, are they all just covering their ass now? Just, As the Federalist detailed earlier today, the prohibited access coding in the FBI Sentinel case management system precludes investigators from detecting the existence of potentially relevant serials. By serials, I think they mean like case numbers, case reports, different things, different reports and stuff. So, in other words, according to the just released FBI report, when search terms that exist in the prohibited access status cases are searched in Sentinel, the particular search will receive a false negative Sentinel research response. This contrasts with FBI documents categories in Sentinel as restricted access. While that restriction prevents FBI agents from viewing contents of restricted access files, Sentinel will nonetheless show there are hits for the search terms. Other investigators will thus know that potentially relevant evidence exists. Not so with the prohibited access code, which will leave the other FBI wrongly believing there are no responsive documents. Senior officials overseeing the investigation into the origins and handling of Crossfire Hurricane did not know the prohibited access coding. did not know of it. So they're saying they had no clue that this existed in the FBI. That Mueller's special counsel office used the functionality to render invisible materials connected to the investigation into President Trump is scandalous. Now in question is the entirety of special counsel John Durham's investigation into the Russia collusion hoaxers, as well as Inspector General Michael Horowitz's investigation into the FISA abuse related to Carter Page. Yeah, so basically, all these things in these investigations, if they did not know about all this stuff, there's no way the investigation was fulsome. There's no way they could know exactly who broke the law and who needs to go to jail. You know, how many other people in the FBI lied to get warrants and stuff. You know, there was the one guy, I think his name was Sussman, right? Michael Sussman. Was that the guy? Or is it a different name? Maybe I'm wrong. That lied. And then, surprisingly, he went in front of a judge by the name of Boasberg, which I don't know you guys recognize that name. That's the guy that was playing games with the Alien Enemies Act. And he gave him a slap on the wrist. I think it was Sussman. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, there was some guy in the FBI DOJ guy that lied about stuff. They gave him probation. And then basically just, time served and gave him his law license back. Ridiculous. Just utter ridiculous. Whether Special Counsel Durham and Inspector General Horowitz obtained access to all the relevant evidence related to Crossfire Hurricane conspiracy to interfere in both President Trump's 2020 election and his first administration now remain in doubt. I thought Crossfire Hurricane was to interfere with the 2016 election. So they're saying there was also interference in the 2020 election? Huh. But I thought the 2020 election was the safest, most secure election in the history of the country. It was above board. And, anybody who thought otherwise was a crazy person. Remember that? I remember that. Until FBI Director Kash Patel reveals the extent to which the Get Trump faction buried evidence of their malfeasance. Okay. Well, the reason they can't delete them is because that would be a crime. I know that sounds silly, but destruction of government documents is a serious crime, and there would always be evidence that they would turn up some point, and there would be evidence of them being deleted. It's just they were able to basically segregate, for lack of a better word, the documents somewhere that they just basically didn't exist. It's almost like I don't know, like easy way to explain is like, you got this hidden on your iPhone, let's say, or your Google, whatever, Android, and you got pictures that you don't want in your picture thing. You can put them in the hidden folder or something. And, nobody can see anything in that hidden folder unless you open it with the code. They couldn't search for them or anything. I think it's kind of similar. Maybe I'm simplifying it in a way that I shouldn't. This is another part to the same story. Basically, another article from the Federalist. It says the latest FBI revelations show the Mueller special counsel was a cover-up and much, much more. Cover-up. This guy. Yeah. Because, he would obviously know about all the secrets and tricks in the FBI because he was the head of the FBI before Comey. Yeah. You know what else this guy was? It kind of ties back into Karen Reed. This guy was also part of the team that, along with Comey, that did shady stuff with a guy by the name of Whitey Bulger. And the special prosecutor in the Karen Reed case, Hank Brennan, was Whitey Bulger's attorney. See how the small world, it all comes circle round and round, cover-ups, they're all involved, they're all together. They're always, one step removed from Kevin Bacon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why didn't the DOJ charge Nellie Orr with lying to Congress? Is the least significant of the questions raised by last week's release of the Washington Field Office EC. The FBI's electronic case management system, Sentinel, allows agents to hide the existence of relevant and investigative reports from other authorized users of the federal database. And during the Russia collusion hoax, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team used that functionality to keep potentially relevant documents hidden from other FBI agents investigating whether a Fusion GPS contractor lied to Congress. Did I read this story yesterday? No. I must not. That's just the date at the second. Good enough. The significance of these two facts cannot be overstated. Now in question is whether the federal government complies with the Constitution mandate in criminal cases to provide defendants with all material exculpatory and impeachment evidence, as well as other discovery obligations in civil litigation. So there's a problem there. If they're not giving over all this information, they're not turning over stuff, then they're not meeting Brady, which is a case that says if they have anything that's exculpatory or information that could be exculpatory, they have to turn it over. They can't, keep it and hide it. But they did, and they were. This came up, if I'm not mistaken, in the Proud Boys case. There was information that was hidden that they found out about it, but the judge basically buried it and said, no, they don't have to. And so that's part of the reason why I'm pretty sure that Trump pardoned those guys, because the convictions and the trial was a sham, was super shady. The one guy was not even ever there. They arrested him when he got off the train in D.C. He was the day before. He was never at the Capitol. He was an Afro-Cuban white supremacist. Whatever, Enrique Tarrio. He's not a white supremacist. He's a black man. Come on. Whether Special Counsel Durham's office, the Inspector General, and agents investigating the members of the Crossfire Hurricane team had access to all the relevant information, whether the DOJ and the FBI provided congressional oversight committees with requested or subpoenaed documents, or whether the FOIA responses included all relevant documents to the press and to the public. Last Wednesday, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa released a recently declassified FBI electronic communication, or EC, dated from September 2019, which the Iowa Republican maintained proves Fusion GPS contractor Nellie Orr lied to Congress about contributions to Crossfire Hurricane. The 43-page document drafted by an FBI Washington field office agent detailed the extensive evidence indicating Nellie Orr lied multiple times during her congressional testimony concerning the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into the Trump campaign. The catalog of evidence against Nellie Orr, who was married to Bruce Orr, one of the key FBI Russia collusion hoaxers. Because Bruce Orr either was with the FBI or with the DOJ. I can't exactly recall directly which one he was with. Raises the question of why the DOJ never pursued criminal charges against the Fusion GPS contractor. The EC, electronic communication, also suggests that Nellie Orr's open source research may have made its way into Steele's dossier and fraudulent Alpha Bank materials provided to the FBI. Those details, Those details, however, pale in comparison to two explosive facts that the EC revealed by way of background. First, the EC explained the FBI's Sentinel case management system allows an investigative material to be coded prohibited access, which renders the files not merely inaccessible to other agents, but invisible to them. And second, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team designated the Trump-Russia collusion investigation prohibited access in Sentinel, meaning any agents running keyword searches in Sentinel would wrongly believe there were no responsive documents. So basically what that means is the entire Trump-Russia collusion investigation, which was a hoax, was shielded from anybody who wasn't politically connected to Robert Mueller and put there by forces designed and aiming at getting rid of Trump. It was a get Trump operation from the beginning, and it was shielded from everyone else. Who appointed Robert Mueller as a special counsel? Was that Jeff Sessions, or was that it had to have been Jeff Sessions, right? Or Bill Barr, one of the two. They forced Trump to do it, or Trump forced him into it after he fired Comey, which he should have. He should never did this. He should have told them all to go pound sand. He should have said, Baf Bangul. Here's how the FBI Washington field office agent put it in the EC. On May 3rd, 2019, relevant FBI DOJ information related to this assessment of Nellie Orr was inaccessible to FBI investigators, given that the Trump-Russia collusion investigation were in FBI systems under prohibited access status, which, unlike restricted access, precludes investigators from detecting the existence of the potentially relevant serials. In other words, the EC continued when search terms in that exist in prohibited access status cases are searched in Sentinel, the particular search will receive a flash negative Sentinel search response. The existence of the prohibited access classification came as a surprise to former career prosecutors and FBI agents. Yeah, they went, surprise, surprise, surprise. Jay Town, a former career prosecutor and U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama under Trump 1.0, told the Federalist he was not aware of prohibited access classifications and shared that many of his colleagues likewise have never heard of it. This is a staggering revelation. This is a staggering revelation for nearly all of us, Town said. At least one former assistant U.S. attorney, however, indicated he knew of the prohibited access coding. Well, then that guy needs to be questioned about it and find out exactly what he knows, how he knows, and why he never said anything to anybody. That's what I would do. And clearly, FBI Washington field office agents who drafted and approved the EC were familiar with its use as well. But how many DOJ and FBI agents knew of the prohibited access functionality is unknown. There's also scant public information about the coding and when or why it is used. For instance, the redacted public version of the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide does not appear to discuss the use of prohibited access in Sentinel. An Inspector General's report from 2021, however, confirms Sentinel offers a prohibited access coding and that coding renders files invisible to other agents. With a footnote in the report explaining documents and data uploaded into Sentinel are assigned one of three access levels: unrestricted, restricted, or prohibited. The extent to which information appears in search results depends on the data access level and the searcher's permissions. Prohibited data is visible only to users with permissions to view the underlying case. All other users receive no search results and would not know that information relevant to their search exists in a prohibited case. Yeah, so basically, the only people that knew about anything in the Trump-Russia collusion hoax were the people involved in the Trump-Russia collusion hoax investigation. So it's kind of like Fight Club, you know. Don't ask about Fight Club. Don't say nothing about Fight Club. Nobody, you know. First rule of spying on U.S. citizens and lying about it is not telling people. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised that James O'Keefe hasn't come across anybody that spilled the beans on prohibited access yet. That he didn't, you know, honeypot anybody into it. That the FBI's case management system allows documents, including witness statements and other evidence, to be rendered invisible to other agents searching Sentinel for relevant documents is horrifying because the federal government is legally obligated in a variety of circumstances to provide such information, but it cannot produce something that it does not know exists. And so that's probably how they get around it too, is because they say, like, no, we don't know it exists. There was something weird too, if any of you guys remember, with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, that the FBI had footage that they took with drones and that nobody could find. They had to like search it down, and someone basically dropped it off or something, like at the last moment before the trial. And I wonder if the same type of stuff, if it's all these investigations that they're doing all around the country, you know, people that aren't breaking the law, but they're just keeping an eye on them, if that's all hidden in this prohibited access stuff, that way nobody can find out about it. For instance, in criminal cases, the Supreme Court has held that the Constitution's due process guarantee requires that the government disclose material exculpatory and impeachment evidence. The Department of Justice must rely on the FBI to provide this constitutionally required evidence, known informally as Brady or Giglio evidence, to a criminal defendant. But the FBI cannot possibly properly gather all the material exculpatory and impeachment evidence if the evidence is invisible to the searcher because it was coded prohibited access. While the Brady-Giglio rule only applies in the criminal context, the federal government's discovery obligations in civil litigation raise similar concerns. If documents responsive to a discovery request are hidden behind a prohibited access designation, the DOJ might not even know the material exists and thus cannot possibly provide it in response to discovery requests. They couldn't possibly give it over. So, without knowing when, why, or how often the FBI designates files as prohibited access within Sentinel, or whether, and if so how, the Bureau ensures it provides prohibited access Brady Giglio evidence, it is impossible to assess the scope of the issue. And that is a huge problem. Huge problem. And I wonder how they're going to get around it. I wonder how they're going to fix it. Maybe Trump should order the head of the FBI or the DOJ that they have to put some kind of a some kind of a code or something in. That way there's like a person, maybe a inspector general, somebody that can go into the computer system and has access so that they can search the files and comes up. So they have to do something. They can't continue to operate like this. It's not constitutional. They're violating people's rights. The ramifications of invisible records maintained within Sentinel by use of the prohibited access designation extend far beyond the realm of criminal prosecutions and civil litigations. The prohibited access designation also thwarts the investigation of potential crimes, such as in the case of Nellie Orr. At least in that case, though, the Washington field office agents knew that Special Counsel Mueller's office had used the prohibited access designation for the Trump-Russia collusion investigations, so they knew to ask for searches of those invisible documents. What the Department of Justice Inspector General? But what about the Department of Justice Inspector General? During his investigation into the 4 fraudulent FISA surveillance order wrongfully targeting Carter Page, they just dismissed Carter Page's lawsuit too. I wonder if he has any of this information, if he can use any of this stuff about, find any of this out for his lawsuit. Did the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, know Special Counsel Mueller's office had secreted documents with the prohibited access designation? Did the Inspector General obtain all relevant documents? Did they? Doubtful. And what about now former Special Counsel John Durham, who was investigating the Crossfire Hurricane team? Did he know that the FBI had designated the Trump-Russia collusion investigations prohibited access? Did his team obtain all the relevant documents? Press X to doubt. One must also wonder if higher-ups in the FBI headquarters used the prohibited access category for other highly politicized investigations, such as the probes into the alleged corruption by the Clinton Foundation and the Biden family. I wonder. What do you think? What do you think the odds are that they hit it there? Probably, right? Makes sense. If so, did the U.S. attorneys charged by Attorney General Bill Barr with overseeing those investigations, John Huber in Utah and Scott Brady in Pennsylvania, respectively, and FBI agents working with them know Sentinel will not allow them to search for relevant documents? These are all questions that need to be asked. Like, these people should already be in front of Congress, the Senate, the House, whoever, getting these questions asked. All these people. John Huber, Scott Brady, John Durham, Horowitz, they should all be there. Should be all answering these questions. Did you know about this? And if any of them say, yeah, we had no clue, then guess what? The entire investigation has to go blah, 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 and spin back up again. Then there's the question of Congress and whether the DOJ and FBI provided all requested or subpoenaed documents to the senators and representatives performing oversight functions. If the Bureau assigned agents to gather the evidence through Sentinel searches without consideration of prohibited access functionality, it seems a sure bet that the congressional oversight committees did not receive everything they asked for. So you would think this would be a bipartisan thing, that both parties would be pissed off about this, would be screaming at the FBI and basically saying, if you did this and didn't tell us what was going on, it's a problem. But I have a feeling that one party isn't going to be complaining about it because, it was used to help them. It's the bottom line. Yeah. Oh, hey, look, I want to say hi to my very special friend, Steve Hilliard. Thank you for joining. It's nice to see you. We're just going over a few news stories. It's not going to be a long stream tonight. Probably going to be about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours max. Similarly, the DOJ and FBI's compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, is now in doubt. If Sentinel won't even show the existence of responsive documents marked prohibited access, the federal government cannot possibly produce the material in response to FOIA requests. The bottom line is this. Why didn't the DOJ charge Nellie Orr with numerous crimes? She was guilty. Guilty of crimes. Plain as day. Lied to Congress. The release last week demonstrates that she should have been charged. And that may be well why FBI Director Kash Patel so quickly declassified that document, to expose the prohibited access functionality of Sentinel and the use of it by Get Trump faction of the DOJ.